Hello there, you're watching the news at 8. I'm Maha Siddiqui. First, the headlines. Indian and Chinese soldiers clash at the LAC in Arunachal Pradesh. Incident occurred on Friday, 9th December, as Chinese PLA troops contacted the LAC. Government sources say face-off led to minor injuries, but immediate disengagement in the area was achieved. A show of strength by the BJP at the Grand Gujarat swearing-in. Prime Minister Modi thanks supporters with folded hands as Bhupendra Patel takes oath as the Chief Minister for the second successive term for a seventh consecutive BJP government. 16 other ministers sworn in, many from Patel's previous cabinet. But in Himachal Pradesh, the BJP's former Chief Minister faces charges of triggering a loss for the party. Prem Kumar Dhumal speaks exclusively to NDTV, says he's upset over rout in Hamirpur, but neither he nor his son Anurag Thakur are to be blamed. Minister S. Jaishankar and Bhupendra Yadav take on the rich nations over unfulfilled promises on climate mitigation. External Affairs Minister says the rich nations are not sincere and are shortchanging the world. Maharashtra opposition takes on the Eknath Shinde government over diversion of Nirbhaya funds. Cars bought by Mumbai police under the funds for fighting crimes against women used in the security detail of MLAs and MPs instead. State Women and Child Development Minister Mangal Prabhat Lodha calls allegations false. Retail inflation at an 11-month low, below 6% at 5.88% in November. Taming of inflation largely due to softening prices of food items. Shocking case from coaching hub Kota in Rajasthan. 3 students between 16 to 18 years reportedly die by suicide. Police investigation underway. A young cop turns college student to crack a ragging case in Indore. 11 accused identified after a 3-month exercise by the police. The young cop wins praise for carrying out the operation seamlessly. First up, reports of clashes that occurred between the Indian and Chinese soldiers on the LAC in the Tawang sector of Arunachal Pradesh on Friday are coming in now. Government sources say on the 9th of December, PLA troops contacted the LAC in Tawang, which was contested by Indian troops in a firm and resolute manner. This face-off led to minor injuries to a few personnel from both sides. Both sides immediately disengaged from the area as per government sources. As a follow-up of the incident, India's commander in the area held a flag meeting with his counterpart to discuss the issue in accordance with structured mechanisms to restore peace and tranquility. Vishnu Shom is now joining us with more details. Vishnu, even though disengagement took place immediately, but several soldiers have sustained injuries. Do we know how many soldiers were injured and how many were involved in the clashes from the other side? Any further details that your sources are willing to share at this stage?
No, Maha, we don't have any further detail beyond what actually is that these clashes took place. We do not know how many soldiers on either side. We do not know the severity of the injuries. But as you mentioned, what has been done as a result of this incident is that there was an effort by local commanders to sort out the issue. These, as I understand it, are probably the first physical clashes between Indian and Chinese soldiers since August 2020, at least the first that have been reported. The previous clashes in August 2020 took place on the south bank of the Pangong Lake after the Galwan incident, where, of course, we'd lost soldiers. They were killed in action, as were Chinese soldiers, who we believe also perished, and indeed they did. But this is just yet another example of how the line of control between India and China remains deeply contested. This took place in an area just north of Tawang, where the Chinese believe that the line of control is separate, different from where we believe it exists. It is known, of course, as the McMahon line in Arunachal Pradesh. And so when Chinese soldiers actually breached the LAC, per our perception, our soldiers responded, and that's their prerogative. But fortunately, it's not resulted in something more substantive, nothing worse than this. But obviously, there is that tension which continues.
Vishnu, since you mentioned what we've seen in Galwan in 2020, how seriously any such incident which leads to a clash between soldiers of the two neighboring countries is taken, and is it natural now that this issue will also be taken up diplomatically?
Well, I think what is curious in this particular incident is that it took place on the 9th, but it's the 12th now, and we're getting word of this 3 days later. So that's interesting that there would be a delay before an actual announcement of this. So obviously it's gone through some sort of decision-making process, and it has now been announced. These are always taken up, but the fact that there have been local commanders who met seems to indicate that this is being resolved. This is not a very large incident. It's not another Galwan. It's not something which has gotten out of hand. There are no fatalities. So we need to look at it like that. When you have soldiers of both sides, some things like this have happened dozens and dozens of times over the last several years. So it's one more incident like that. There have been injuries, and it is significant to report that. But beyond that, nothing else.
Vishnu Shomei, thanks for joining us with all those details. Let's move on now. 3 students have died by suicide in Kota in Rajasthan. 2 of these students are from Bihar and 1 from Madhya Pradesh. They were 16, 17 and 18-year-olds who were enrolled in coaching for engineering and medical entrance examinations.
कुछ नहीं मिला सर, ये वही पंखे से लटक के दोनों पहले मैंने दूसरे वालों का नहीं देखा, पहले वालों का कमरे पास थे या जी एक साथ ही थे, दोनों के एक साथ ही अगल बगल हॉस्टल में रहते थे, एक साथ एक ही टाइम पे लगाई उन्होंने, वो नहीं पता सर। और आज का मामला सुबह में कल का रात का है? आज जैसे बता रहे हैं सब 6 बजे बात की है घर पे, सुबह उसके बाद जो हुआ सो हुआ।
चाय वगैरह कुछ पिया इन्होंने, खाना वाना
नहीं पता।
Harsha Kumari Singh is now getting us more details. Harsha, what is the police saying regarding the case? It's horrifying that 3 students died by suicide on the same day, is it?
Yes, it is the same day, and in fact what's making the police's task a little difficult is that nobody has left any kind of a note, any kind of a written suicide note. So it's a little difficult to, sort of ascertain exactly what happened. But of course it appears to be study stress. And the first 2, if you notice, the ones from Bihar, they are known to each other, they lived in the same hostel. And, it seems to be that perhaps they may have even had a conversation because they were seen together by other students. So, so definitely, yes, very, very sad, very tragic. And the other student who's from Madhya Pradesh is unrelated. But yes, it's something that the government and the administration and the coaching institutes have actually tried to address in Kota. They have been trying to address it. They have days when they give the students an off. They've tried to psychologically counsel them a lot. In fact, counseling is quite intense now in Kota, and every institute has trained psychologists and counselors. In fact, they have sessions for them regularly. But in spite of all that, if you see the kind of pressure that you're under when you give the IIT exam, I mean about 10 to 15,000 students plus actually just make it, and LAC sit for it. So that's the kind of competition that's there in the IIT. Also in the NEET, the figures are similar. So, young children under a lot of pressure. In fact, some of them drop out of school and go in for coaching. So these 2 students from Bihar apparently are now in the 11th, but they actually came there either in the 9th or the 10th. So they finished school at home, and then they were doing school here and also coaching at the same time. So that's where the pressure really comes in. And one would not only blame the coaching institutes, of course, because that kind of a system does engender, this kind of stress, but even the parents. A number of times the parents also, the children are trying to live up to parents' expectations. Parents are under financial stress because they're funding the coaching, and that also really affects the children.
Harsha Kumari Singh, they're reporting on this tragic incident coming to light from Kota. Let's move on now. Bhupendra Patel was sworn in as the 18th Chief Minister of Gujarat, his 2nd successive term as CM. 16 ministers who were sworn in today include 8 cabinet ministers, 2 with independent charge and 6 as ministers of state. But it was the BJP's grand celebration and show of strength that stood out, from Prime Minister Modi, Amit Shah, Rajnath Singh on stage to chief ministers of BJP-ruled states, allies and 200 sadhus in attendance at the sprawling venue.
After a record-breaking landslide victory, the BJP pulled all stops for a grand swearing-in ceremony in Gandhinagar as the party forms 7th straight government in Gujarat.
ભૂપેન્દ્ર રજનીકાંત પટેલ ઈશ્વરના નામે સોગંદ લઉં છું કે
As Bhupendra Patel took oath for his second term as Chief Minister of Gujarat,
સંવિધાન પ્રત્યે
the entire galaxy of the Bharatiya Janata Party, led by Prime Minister Narendra Modi, Home Minister Amit Shah, Central Cabinet Ministers, Chief Ministers of BJP-ruled states and 200 saints were in attendance.
नागरिकों के श्री चरणों में आभार वंदन करके प्रणाम करती हूँ कि नरेंद्र भाई मोदी का इतना बड़ा सम्मान वोट के माध्यम से गुजरात ने डेवलपमेंट के पक्ष में किया। इस इतिहास को रचने के लिए न सिर्फ नरेंद्र भाई का अभिनंदन है बल्कि साथ ही हर एक गुजराती का।
Facing problem of plenty, the BJP leadership kept performance as the main criteria, as 17 ministers, including Chief Minister Bhupendra Patel, took oath of office. Roshikesh Patel, Kanu Desai, Raghavji Patel, Mili Bhai Bera and 4 others took oath as cabinet ministers. 6 MOS, including Bachchu Khabad, Purushottam Solanki and 2 MOS with independent charge, including former Home Minister in BJP's last term, Harsh Sanghvi, also took oath. Surprisingly, despite massive anticipation, none of the young Congress imports, Alpesh Thakur and Hardik Patel, found mention in the new cabinet. Hardik Patel, when asked about it, said he's happy with whatever party decides for him.
भारतीय जनता पार्टी का शीर्ष नेतृत्व जो भी तय करेगा निश्चित रूप से गुजरात के भले के लिए और गुजरात के फ्यूचर के लिए ही होगा। भारतीय जनता पार्टी का शीर्ष नेतृत्व जिनका भी नाम तय करेगा वो निश्चित रूप से गुजरात के भले के लिए मजबूती से काम करेगा। हार्दिक पटेल पार्टी जो भी जिम्मेवारी देगी उसको भी निभाएंगे, लेकिन निश्चित रूप से पार्टी की भूमिका तय होगी, वो पार्टी तय करेगी।
Though the occasion was to celebrate the new government in Gujarat, but the spotlight was on Prime Minister Narendra Modi, as he took a bow with folded hands from the center stage. It's Modi all the way for the BJP. The message crystal clear for the opposition ahead of 2024. In a massive show of strength and a grand swearing-in ceremony, Bhupendra Patel took oath as the Chief Minister of Gujarat for his second consecutive term and for the 7th straight term of the Bharatiya Janata Party in the state. Along with him, 8 other cabinet ministers and 8 MOS also took oath in the presence of Prime Minister Narendra Modi, Home Minister Amit Shah and other central cabinet ministers. And with that, the Bharatiya Janata Party starts yet another term of governance in the state of Gujarat. With camera person Ravi Joshi and Tanushree Pandey for NDTV.
But in the other state that went to the polls, the BJP faced a drubbing, and surprisingly in Hamirpur, the stronghold of the party, that it was totally routed. Both Prem Kumar Dhumal and son Anurag Thakur are under fire. The beleaguered former Chief Minister spoke to my colleague Vedant Agarwal, where he said that he was not the cause for rebellion ahead of the election and his son worked hard for the party.
तो सबसे पहले ये बताइए कि तकरीबन 40 साल में पहली बार हमीरपुर में 5 सीटें बीजेपी हार गई। उसके बारे में आपकी पहली प्रतिक्रिया क्या होगी?
बहुत दुखद है, बहुत दुख हुआ। जहाँ खून पसीने से सिंचा था पार्टी को, वहाँ पार्टी की हार निश्चित तौर पे प्रत्येक कार्यकर्ता को दुख पहुँचा रही है।
कहीं ना कहीं सर ये बार बार बीजेपी सपोर्टर्स ने भी ये चीज़ कही कि इन फाइटिंग की वजह से या फिर पार्टी में जो कहीं ना कहीं कैंप्स एक डेवलप हो गए थे उसकी वजह से बीजेपी की हार हुई है और उसी की वजह से बागी भी बीजेपी के कई जो सिटिंग एमएलएस थे वो भी बागी हो गए और बागी फैक्टर जो है वो बहुत बड़ा फैक्टर रहा है बीजेपी की हार में। इस पर क्या कहना चाहेंगे?
पार्टी इस पे चर्चा कर रही है, जब भी समीक्षा होगी तो लोग अपनी बात वहाँ रखेंगे। ग्रुप्स कहाँ हो गए? 5 साल हमने तो कोई ग्रुप देखा नहीं, हम तो चुपचाप सुनते रहे, देखते रहे।
लेकिन क्या आप ये मानेंगे कि जो बीजेपी के लीडर्स बागी हो गए वो आपकी वजह से हुए, और कहीं ना कहीं अगर बागी फैक्टर ना होता तो आज बीजेपी जीती होती?
मेरी वजह से कोई बागी नहीं हुआ, जो बागी हुए अपने टिकट के कारण हुए, जिनको लगा उनके साथ अन्याय हुआ वो बागी हुए होंगे।
और अब क्या अभी बीजेपी इंट्रोस्पेक्शन समीक्षा कर रही है, विचार विमर्श कर रही है कि क्या किस वजह से स्टेट में हार हुई बीजेपी की, इस बारे में?
निश्चित तौर पर जब हार होती तब तो निश्चित तौर पर पार्टी समीक्षा करती है, पता करती है क्या कारण रहे, किन कारणों से हार हुई, उन फैक्टर्स को आगे से दोहराया ना जाए।
जी, जो लोग अनुराग ठाकुर जी को ब्लेम कर रहे हैं इस हार के लिए, बीजेपी सपोर्टर्स खुद भी हैं सोशल मीडिया पर, तमाम प्लेटफॉर्म्स पर, उनको आपका क्या संदेश होगा उनके लिए?
मुझे किसी को कुछ नहीं कहना, सबकी जांच हो जाए। अनुराग दिन रात मेहनत करते रहे, 18 मीटिंग एक विधानसभा क्षेत्र में की है, उसके बाद भी अगर दोष देना है तो दोष देने वालों की मर्जी।
जी सर।
The richer nations, the developed countries, have shortchanged the world on climate finance. India's External Affairs Minister lashed out at the countries that have a huge carbon footprint and are passing the buck onto other nations without doing their share of emission control. Speaking on climate justice at the India Global Forum in Dubai, the minister said that promises made by developed nations in the big climate fora like COP remain unmet.
Those who are occupying carbon space have kept promising that they would help others, and frankly they've kept shortchanging the world. And they come up every COP with some some new argument, some evasion, something which keeps kicking the can down the road. So the real problem you're facing today is the same problem we've had multiple COPs ago, which is that the developed countries are still not, I'm sorry to say, they're still not sincere about keeping to their promises. And there is growing frustration because the state of the world is obviously getting worse. So the more climate events and emergencies you have, the more there's going to be the sense that these countries are unwilling to walk the talk.
Greatest challenge is the climate finance and technology transfer. That's the plan. That's the promises made by the developed countries. Unfortunately, it is not fulfilled.
That was Environment Minister Bhupen Yadav speaking on climate finance as well. Let's move on now. A massive row has broken out in Maharashtra. There are allegations that cars bought by the Mumbai police under the Nirbhaya Fund for fighting crimes against women were used in the security detail of MLAs and MPs of Eknath Shinde's Shiv Sena faction. State Minister Mangal Prabhat Lodha, though, has called the allegations false and said there is no need for an audit.
Why plus security for Chief Minister Eknath Shinde and all his MLAs since they formed the government in June? But these escort SUVs were bought with the Nirbhaya Fund and were meant to provide security to women.
महाराष्ट्र में ये क्राइम अगेंस्ट वुमेन बढ़ते जा रहे हैं. इसकी गिनती तो कल भी हमने दी है, मगर ये बहुत ही महिलाओं के प्रति आप एक तो उनको आप न्याय नहीं दिला रहे हो, और उनको जो अधिकार है निर्भया स्क्वाड का वो भी आप उनसे छीन कर लेके जा रहे हो. और किसके लिए नहीं, ये जो निर्भया स्क्वाड्स की जो सारे व्हीकल्स है तुरंत पुलिस फोर्स में जमा करनी चाहिए.
बहुत ही शर्मनाक चीज है ये, और बहुत ही बेहया चीज ये है कि जो फंड सिर्फ महिलाओं के लिए यूपीए गवर्नमेंट ने दिया था. यूपीए गवर्नमेंट के टाइम पे एक निर्भया कानून पास हुआ था, और उसके तहत सिर्फ निर्भया के लिए जो महिलाएं डिस्ट्रेस में हैं उनके लिए ये फंड है, वो डाइवर्ट न करे. इसकी मांग हमने इससे पहले भी राज्यसभा में और लोकसभा में इसकी महिलाओं ने की है कि इसका फंड का क्या यूटिलाइज होता है. महिला और बाल विकास मंत्री उसका जवाब दे.
जिन्होंने इस तरह से मिसयूज किया है इस चीज को, उनको इस्तीफा देना चाहिए और उनको माफी मांगनी चाहिए सारी महिलाओं से और निर्भया की परिवार से और निर्भया जैसी जितनी केसेस हैं, क्योंकि इन लोग इनसेंसिटिव लोग हैं. इस तरह से आप अभी क्या शब्द इस्तेमाल करूं मैं.
The central government started the Nirbhaya Fund in 2013, through which funds were provided to the states for women's security. Now vehicles that were purchased through these funds were used for day-night patrolling, but now the same vehicles are being used to provide security to the MLAs and the MPs.
Recently, after the molestation of a Korean vlogger in Mumbai or the pictures of a woman who jumped from an auto rickshaw, questions were raised about the safety of women in Maharashtra. But the Minister of Women and Child Development is in turn asking what the previous government did.
आंदोलन करने का उनका अधिकार है, वो पहले ये बता दें कि निर्भया फंड तो कितने समय से उनके 2.5 साल में निर्भया फंड नहीं था क्या? उन्होंने 2.5 साल में निर्भया फंड का क्या उपयोग करा, पहले उसकी ऑडिट करके लोगों के सामने आने दें। आरोप लगाना बहुत आसान है, काम करना बहुत मुश्किल है। मैं इसमें ज्यादा बोलना नहीं चाहता हूँ।
There is not a single woman in the new Maharashtra cabinet. And already the government is facing questions over using funds meant for women's safety for their own safety. In Mumbai with Sohit Mishra and Rajen Dayalkar, Bureau Report, NDTV.